to another episode of African Echo. How are you today? I do hope that you are well. No, it's the beginning of the week. I do hope that everyone is doing well. But on today's podcast, we have a very important conversation, and I felt it will not do us any justice if we don't touch on this one, because as Africans, it's a conversation and a topic where, as societies, we seem to still be struggling. We're talking about the deceased estate. It's a conversation that many people do not like, but it's a much needed, and I believe that every family, everyone actually, should talk about it. But today I'm joined by Nqobile Gumbi. He's an admitted attorney, and we are going to talk to him about le topic ebaluleke ngako ukuthi when someone passes away, then what? Nqobile, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, how are you doing?
Ngiyabonga kakhulu. I'm doing great. Great.
It's a very sensitive topic, especially to us as Africans. We have seen horrific incidents where one member or many or all of them, they end up passing away because simply we didn't want to accept terms of inheritance, or we didn't have that in place. But let's start in the beginning. When we talk about a deceased estate, what exactly do we mean?
Yeah, what makes me like this particular area of law is that it's an area of law that touches everyone.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, we are here in this world, and each and every one of us is one day going to leave this realm. And when we leave, the applicable law that is going to be in effect is the law which deals with inheritance. So basically, when you ask me what is a deceased estate, we call it an administration of deceased estate.
Right.
Maybe if I can just explain what do we mean by the administration of deceased estate. A deceased person is someone who has passed away. So an estate will basically consist of the person's property. When I say property, both immovable and movable. So immovable property will be things such as your house, such as maybe your flats, such as your land. Then movable property would be your cars, your furniture, anything that you can move. You also have tangible property and intangible property. For example, you have your shares. Maybe you're a director in a company. Your shares in the company will form part of your estate. You can also have maybe investments. You can also have policies. Maybe some of the policies you nominated the beneficiaries, some of the policies you did not nominate the beneficiaries. So all of that consists of what we call your estate. But not only your property, also your debts. Remember, maybe you incurred debts during your lifetime. For example, your personal loans, your outstanding balance on your personal loan, your mortgage loan. Maybe you have an outstanding balance on your motor vehicle.
Right.
So all of that will constitute what we call your estate.
Right.
So at the end of the day, your estate will be your assets minus your liabilities. So your liabilities, as I said, normally it's your personal loan, your mortgage. Maybe you were owing your friend, and immediately when you passed, your friend comes knocking at your home and say, so that is your estate. So the administration of the deceased estate is a process whereby it starts with the person. When a person dies, you have to go and report to the office of the Master of the High Court within 14 days that someone has passed away, and obviously they will make you complete some documentation, and someone who is called an executor will be appointed, especially if your estate is above 250,000 in value. So someone called an executor will be appointed, and that person will basically be in charge to administer your estate. Administering your estate will depend whether a person died with a will or a person died without having a will. So if a person dies having a will, obviously whatever that is written in his will must be followed. If he says, I want to benefit A and B for this particular property, then A and B must be the one who benefits from that property.
Right.
But if you die without having a will, then the laws of interstate succession will take precedent. And the immediate beneficiary will be your spouse, followed by your children. If you died without having a spouse and children, then the beneficiaries will be your parents.
Okay.
So if you don't have parents and you don't have a spouse and children, the beneficiaries will be your siblings and so on. So basically there are rules.
It just keeps on moving.
Yes,
All right.
it just looks for the closest next of kin. So that's if you die without having a will.
Of which it's something, yeah, yebo ngobile you started nje uqala la.
Yeah.
Ukuthi yazi ukuthi as abantu abamnyama, let me say this, we fight for even ipeni.
That's true.
Yesterday I was just going through stuff and then someone was talking about two brothers fighting for one cow. Some others are talking about the traditional route taking precedence. Some others are taking the law, as you are mentioning right now. So this is why we're here today. And we're talking about this because these are serious issues that take place. But
Real life issues, yeah.
And always comes, this something that always comes out. I'm going to give you one example that we just had recently. The lady in question, she was not born from she is actually what do you call it, a stepdaughter.
Okay.
Yeah. But because the actual child of the family is married,
Okay.
and ubhuti omdala ushadelwe naye uyihlalela kwakhe.
Okay.
So the stepdaughter is the one left at home.
I see.
Now there comes a challenge. The last parent that was alive passes on. They are chasing her out of the house, like awena, like hi awena, just leave. So this is where we at. What happens in such issues? Because these are daily and normal issues that come up every day.
Maybe I should say the administration of deceased estate, that is to say who get to inherit is determined by the laws of South Africa. The laws of South Africa do recognize customary law.
Okay.
So in terms of the law, let's say in that particular case there was no will. The stepdaughter is entitled to only benefit from his or her parent, from her parent basically. So if the house was owned jointly by her parent and the other parent who is a stepfather or a stepmother, it would mean that she would only be entitled to benefit only the portion of the mother, of the actual parent. Yeah, the law says that you cannot benefit from someone who was not your parent, even if they were in a relationship, unless you have been adopted. You have been legally adopted.
Okay.
Then you can only be able to benefit. But I can imagine in such a circumstance, because those parents were married, and if they were married in community of property, they had what you call a joint estate, meaning they owned everything equally and together. So in such a circumstance, that stepchild will have a claim or will be entitled to inherit the portion that would have been due to her parent. So that's how it works in such circumstances. But I do want to say, you know, there's a lot of misconception in our communities.
Yeah.
Some would say, you know, ingane yentombazane ikwazi ukuthi kube iyona esala nomuzi ngoba nakho mhlambe izoshada umuzwa like awushintsha isibongo and all kinds of things. But as I said, the law, if there's no will, it's clear when there's a will, because everything will be in the will. But if there's no will, the laws of Interstate Succession Act would take precedent. And the imminent beneficiaries is your spouse, followed by your children and your parents. If you don't have parents and spouse and children, then it's going to be your siblings and so on. So in such a situation, then if there's no will, then those laws will basically take precedent.
I'm laughing because my next question is, in your line of work, you see these things happening daily. For most people or most households, do you think they understand the concept of what you really need to put your everything into perspective, especially for abantu abazosala? Do you think we really have that? We have worked out this will happen should I pass away?
I don't think so. Even though there is now some awareness, but I don't think it has reached to a point where we can say really most people are aware of what we can call an estate planning, because it all begins, and estate planning is very broad. Even the type of marriage you elect when you are entering into a marriage is part of the estate planning.
Right.
Because when you leave, the nature of your marriage will determine how some of the assets are divided. For example, if you are married in community of property and you are doing a will, you must know that you are doing a will in relation to your half share.
All right.
So let's say, for example...
Wow. So it's not consolidated?
No, it's not consolidated. So if you are married in community of property and you own the vehicle, for example,
right,
and you say to your will, I'm leaving my vehicle to my son, A. You must know that when you die, that vehicle, the half of it is owned by your spouse. So which means you are only leaving the half of the vehicle. So if there's no money, if the child cannot buy your spouse, your surviving spouse out, let's say that the car is valued at 100,000 at your death, and your child cannot buy your surviving spouse and give him 50,000, half of the value of the car.
Okay.
It means that the car has to be now sold. And your intentions are defeated. Your intentions to leave the car with your son will be defeated because you did not plan your estate properly, or you did not understand even the consequences of your marriage upon death or divorce. So I don't think we have that complex understanding of an estate planning. There are so many other things that may...
Especially around the customary marriage as well. I say, ubabu nabakhoskazi ayi-2. And then useyadlula emhlabeni unengane ezu-8 altogether. What happens there?
Those ones are normally very complicated. They are normally very complicated. And if you are marrying in terms of the customary law and you want to take more than one spouse, you really need a proper estate planning. But what the law says is that, or what the case law says is that the first spouse that you marry, the marriage, because naturally the marriage, in the customary marriage, is normally in community of property. By default, it's in community of property, unless the parties elect to conclude what we call a prenuptial contract before the conclusion. So the first spouse, the marriage between you and the first spouse, will be in community of property. But the subsequent marriages will be out of community of property, meaning the first spouse will be the one who's entitled to half.
To the half of the estate.
Of the estate.
All right.
And then the other subsequent spouses will then have to share on the other half. In fact, let me just pause and say this. According to the law, if you are taking more than one spouse, the second spouse you are taking, there must be an agreement to say, an agreement that will govern your matrimonial regime, that will govern your assets between you and the subsequent spouse. And that agreement must be approved by the courts to say, because remember, there's an interest of the first spouse. Let's say you're taking a third spouse, there's an interest of the first and second spouse. So the courts actually need to assess that agreement and see it won't affect the interest of the other spouses. But in practice, I've never seen that application in court where a person saying, I want to conclude a subsequent marriage, and this is the agreement that will govern our matrimonial relationship between me and the subsequent spouse, and I want the court to actually approve of this agreement. I haven't seen such application in court, but the law, that's what the law says, and it says so for a reason, to protect everyone's interest, because it becomes very difficult upon the death of the husband, leaving all these wives to fight
And
amongst
children.
themselves. So the law is not, it tries to protect the interest of everyone by saying, if you are taking a subsequent spouse, approach the court so that the court can approve. But if you don't, the law does not say
Then
that
you are
marriage.
not protected per se.
Yeah, the law does not say that marriage would be invalid. It says that marriage would just be out of communes of property. But it's very important that for people who want to take subsequent spouses, they actually have an agreement that will govern that marriage. But it becomes a very difficult situation upon the death of the husband.
Kuthiwa Nqobile umndeni yiwona yonke into ekhona ekhaya eyala ekhaya as ama communities isiphuma kuwona. Simply saying that everything that is within this household that belongs to the family of this household. Then what happens? What does then the law says when it comes to estate law, where a person passes away, but it's also clashes with customary laws. Let's set for an example, unomuzi endaweni la esizabelweni.
Okay.
Yabona, nanku umuzi wakhiwe, and then I have my family, all my family, because ikwakhiwa imizi omkhulu endaweni esezabelweni.
Yeah.
Then umuzi mkhulu wonke umuntu uhlala la ekhaya.
Yeah.
So the actual person or the head of the house passes on, and then ashiye uspouse wakhe nengane no sis bakhe no auntie and everybody egcekeni la ekhaya.
Extended family.
Kwenzakalani? Because in many a times siye sizwe sekuthiwa sebexoshiwe ekhaya elaba ama extended families umakoti usethe hambani ayikwami la and what's not, but siyazi nakhona ukuthi kuba khona izinto that have to do with ama customary acts enkosini egovernisha le ndawo abakhe kona. It sounds complicated when you actually go through it and listen to a person. What then happens?
Yeah. You know, when it comes to inheritance, the laws that deal with inheritance in South Africa would take precedent. And I've seen this in many cases where even the family of the deceased husband, in most cases, they will say, no, maybe we don't recognize you as unkosikazi, or maybe bungaqedelangu kuyobola, and all kinds of things. But the law of South Africa is clear, as I said, the wife will have will be in an advantage position and will be the one who's actually entitled to benefit. Hence, that is why in such situation, it's important for the husband or the man, when he's still alive, to actually make a will and say, this house is for the benefit of my family, and include all those family members and their children who are alive and who are to be born alive. That's the only way you can actually protect it as a family home. Okay. But once you pass on from this world and you have a spouse and you had another house which is under your name, whether ingaphansi kwenkosi ne-PTO noma indawo engaphansi kwamasipala in a title deed, when you pass on and you have a spouse, your spouse will be the one who is actually entitled to deal with those properties. In fact, to deal with all your properties. Even your mother because your mother is excluded
Right.
once you have a wife and children. So they will have no say in terms of the law. And there's been a lot of case law dealing with those issues, and the court said the only laws that will apply are the laws that deal with inheritance, and that is an Interstate Succession Act as well as the Administration of the Deceased Estate Act. And the imminent beneficiaries are your children and your spouses.
You have mentioned the importance of will in the beginning. Now, let's take this. What are some of the warnings that something shady might take place or happen during the estate process? Ngiyengezwa kuthiwa uthe omunye ngiye ka-master bafika ka-master banganginika mina banikeza sibanibani a certain person, mhlawumbe a sibling, incwadi ukuthi uyena or responsible, and that has caused the whole clash within the family. So in such cases, kwenzakalani?
So when a person dies, let's say a person dies without having a will, so the Interstate Succession Act rules will take precedent, and the person, because the master has to issue what we call letters of authority or letters of executorship. If the estate is below 250,000, he will issue the letters of authority. If it's above 250, letters of executorship. So the person under whom those letters are issued is the person who has the powers to deal with the property of the deceased. In fact, Section 26 of the Administration of Deceased Estates Act says that immediately upon issuing the letters of executorship, the executor must take charge and control of the assets of the deceased. So it means that that person whose letters are issued under can actually seize all the properties of the deceased. So if the deceased, for example, had his car, mhlambe isetshenziswa ubhuti wakhe, umuzi wakhe, mhlambe unemizi benama tenants kwemunye imizi namabhizinisi. So lo muntu ozobe nominated as execute must take charge. So he must step in the shoes of the deceased. If the deceased was receiving a rent, then he must take charge and be the one. If the deceased had a business or was a director and a shareholder, that person must be nominated in the place and shoes of the deceased. So it's very important ukuthi uba ama-letters azophuma ngaphansi kwegama lakhe. Now, what determines ukuthi ama-letters aphuma ngaphansi kwegama laba? Preference again is given to surviving spouse, if there's a spouse, and is also given to the children of the deceased. But if they are fighting amongst themselves as to who must be appointed for whatever reason, and normally there's a form that's when they go to report the estate at the master looking for those letters, there's a form that they must complete called a nomination form. And in that particular form, the beneficiaries amongst themselves must actually nominate who's going to be an executor. But you do find circumstances whereby they don't agree as to who will be nominated. And in such a circumstance, the master of the High Court can say, I will appoint someone who's competent, and usually an attorney, practicing attorney, who is in the panel of the master. The master of the High Court will say, I will nominate one of the attorneys in my panel because you are fighting amongst yourself. I'll nominate someone to deal with the administration of the deceased estate. But if you have a will, obviously in your will, you would have nominated an executor and say, for example, you can nominate your lawyer, you can nominate one of your family members, you can nominate your spouse, you can nominate one of your children or all of your children. You can nominate more than one person if you so wish. You have to nominate someone whose integrity is not questionable, someone who's honest, who's trustworthy, someone that you can actually trust when you are not in this world, that he will execute the terms of your will in a manner that is going to be, in a manner that would give effect to your intentions. so that's how it works. It's either if there's no will, the master will give preference to the surviving spouse and the children. If you have a will, then you must elect whilst you're still alive the person that you want to be to take charge of your assets. Remember, that person has a responsibility to make sure that the beneficiaries get to benefit in a manner that you have written in your will. Not only that, because your will, you can even say, this is how I want to be buried. I'm just reminded of the recent politician who passed away, who said he wants to be cremated and his ashes must be thrown in the ocean. So you can actually do those things. You can, in your will, say this is the...
You have to state your wishes.
You have to state your wishes as you want them to be upon your death. And nominate someone that you trust that he will or she will execute your wishes in that manner.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. As we conclude, you work in this sector and umkhakha wakho lo. Do you have a highlight where you say this particular case has stayed with you because of how it happened, especially?
Well, there are so many instances where I come across where, you know, sometimes it's hurting for the family. One instance is where this particular, I was approached by the members of the family that the deceased actually had a house. He was paying for a bond through his friend.
Oh.
So maybe when they were still alive, they were friends. When the deceased was still alive, they were friends, and they made an agreement that maybe it didn't qualify. And they made an agreement with this friend to say, please take out a mortgage bond under your name because you qualify, but I will pay for the bond until I finish the bond. I will be the one who's residing in the house. And he passed away. And that mortgage bond is still under his friend's name. Now, the family does not know what to do, and the friend is nowhere to be found. And the bond is not being paid. The friend is nowhere to be found. So it's a problem because now, which means he has left the family without a house. They can't even say we want to pay the outstanding amount of the bond because they don't even know that person whose property is under and is not willing to come to the family to assist them. So there are so many other instances like that where, you know, a person was a shareholder in the company, and once he dies, the remaining shareholders do not want to give the family the dividends. So there are so many instances like that, so where there was no will, and there are also other children from outside the marriage, and, you know, babanga, my assets are deceased. So, you know, there are so many instances like that, which is sometimes unfortunate.
So, to change the narrative in the African context, how can people then change as communities so that you can change this narrative? Like, you find people killing each other, people hunting each other, so that I'm going to be the last one left with this inheritance because parents or people that were responsible, they didn't take their responsibility serious. Where do we actually have to start?
You know, one of the things that you can do as well as part of your estate planning is that you can give the inheritance whilst you're still alive.
Oh, okay.
Although you will have to pay, you know, if you're donating those assets to your children, you will have to pay the donations tax. But it's one of the ways that you can avoid this. Let's say you have houses or you have a flat that you want to give to your child. You can actually transfer it whilst you're still alive and obviously pay donations tax. Even when you are dead, you still pay tax in the form of an estate duty, which is 20% if the value of the estate, I think, is 3.5 million. So you can do that and say, because they will fight when I'm not here. Let me just give them what is due to them. That's one part. Another thing is you can have a will. You can draft the last will and testament in which you state who do you want to benefit and who do you exclude. I think so. That's the most logical thing we can all do, because a will is very important. And you nominate an executor that you trust; he will execute your wishes as you have included them in your will. So I think those two things
Are really
can be really important. And as African communities, we also have to, move with times and understand that in nowadays, once a person gets married, that person has started his family with his spouse, and they are now a family. As an extended family, you probably have little or no share to their estates, and we have to understand that whether you're a close brother, close sister, or even parents, we need to understand that once they start a family, they now have their own family, and if one of them dies, the inheritance will be for the one who is surviving.
I'm laughing because in many a times, Ngobile, us as sisters, we are the ones who say, "Hey, that's my brother's money."
Yeah, that's
we
very
always
true.
come for the wife with, "Yay, that's my brother's thing."
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. And we'll say, even brothers, they will say, "Hey, that's my brother's car. I need to use the car. I need to borrow this." I mean, we need to do away from that mentality, because this person has started a family, and I'm sure in most cases, whilst he was still alive or she was still alive, she was doing good for the extended family. And I'm sure it's not the intention of the deceased to benefit the extended family in exclusion of his or her imminent family. I don't think that would be anyone's intention, because I mean that wouldn't be life as we know it. Everyone has to go and start his family, and that's how we expand.
Yeah, Ngobile, that was so insightful. And I believe this conversation is very much important because see, with December,
Yes.
festive season, people are getting married.
People are getting
So we're going to
married,
have
like-
another conversation. Before I say I do, understand the contract
Yeah.
that we are getting into, because ziyenzeka lapha.
Yes. We've just seen it with the celebrity that I won't name was doing his divorce. So it can really get complicated.
It
So
does.
we need to understand what type of, because marriage is purely legal, and people need to understand it for what it is. That this is a legally binding arrangement between the two of you, and the consequences are also purely legal in when one dies or when you get divorced.
Kodwa ke mhlambe nawo sekufuneka sibalande nabo family yabo ukuthi nani aniseyona iphathi yale unity.
Yes,
Because
yes.
siya infiltrator into somebody else's space and in states. Siyabonga kakhulu for your time.
No, ngiyabonga
Mr.
kakhulu, ngibonge
Mr.
nakuba
Kumbi.
viewers zakho.
Absolutely. Well, till next time, African Echo viewers and our followers, thank you so much once again for your support. To Mr. Kumbi, thank you so very much. It's wonderful to have this conversation. Do viewers get more information? Should you want to be guests? Should you want to participate? Would like to invest or want to have more information? Contact us. Check us on our website. It's africanecho.co.za, african-echo.co.za. Until next time, goodbye.